episode 2 of the path to Nibbana. And here we find out who did it. That's 3 characteristics of existence. So when we don't understand this, that's where we get into trouble. All phenomena that arise from a cause do not persist. Do you arise from a cause? Yes. Does your happiness arise from a cause? So it doesn't persist. It's going to end. Does your anxiety arise from a cause? It's just going to go anyway. So just enjoy a bit while it's there. And just your anxiety. Does your deep meditation arise from a cause? So that disappears as well. So it comes and goes. So when you have a very good meditation and then tomorrow you don't, then that's nature. Nothing wrong. Oh, but anyway, but I forgot. Does my forgetfulness arise from a cause? Because I'm old age. So we're supposed to do the Namo Tassa. Let's do the Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So, all phenomena that arise from a cause are also suffering. So, I am suffering. You should know that by now. And all of you are suffering as well. So it comes from a cause and it passes away. All phenomena without a permanent essence. Because if they were with a permanent essence, there would be no end of suffering. So, what do you think? That's the 3 characteristics of existence, which we'll come into in more depth later on. What do you think? Does your form body persist or disintegrate? My body's already disintegrating. How about yours? Yes, we're all just in different stages of decay. Even sometimes, all the effort you put into building this wonderful retreat center, and you can also already see it just falling apart, cracks in the wall, things going wrong. That's the nature of things. So, what's the next one? Oh, what do you think? Form to persist or disintegrate? Disintegrates, Venerable Sir. Is what disintegrates suffering or happiness? Suffering. Oh, just mean you have to go and on the roof again and fix the plumbing? Do you have to just raise funds again to fix something? Oh, anyway, it's suffering. Is what disintegrates is suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded as this is mine. If I really owned it and had power over it, I'd be able to tell it what to do. I can't even tell my monks what to do. Or what I tell them, but when I'm not in Bodhinyana monastery, they do something else. That's nature. That's same with the nuns as well. So you just leave them alone. They know what to do, trust them. And what else is there? This I am. Because if that's who you are, then what happened to that handsome, young, fit man I was when I was young? Disappeared. This is a permanent essence. Not permanent at all, this body. No, Venerable Sir. Does experience persist or disappear? Can you meet the lover of your life and ride off into the sunset, happy ever after? The shortest fairy tale. You know the shortest fairy tale? Yeah. No, not yet. The shortest fairy tale. It's got to be something a bit more traditional than that. Prince Charming meets Cinderella, And Prince Charming goes down on one knee and says, "Will you marry me?" She says no, and they live happily ever after. I told these jokes to one person in Nolamara Temple once, and he looked at me and said, tomorrow I'm getting married. Oh no, what did I do? Or the other story. There was a very famous Thai monk. He was such a good meditator and so well respected that one of the kings, I forget who it was, I think King Mongkut, he invited him to the palace because 3 of the princes and princesses were going to get married. So they had a joint little marriage ceremony, and he gave them a Dhamma discourse. At the end of the Dhamma discourse, those 3 grooms-to-be decided not to get married and become monks. He was never invited into the palace again. And that's a true story. Anyway, so experience persists or disappears. It disappears. It's not permanent. Perception persists or change. You see it one way today, you see it one way tomorrow. Just even the way we look at things or events, heat, cold, whatever, perceptions change. Does will stay the same or come and go and alter? It comes and it goes. That's why the will can't be you. Our consciousnesses, constant or change, they're always changing, Venerable Sir. Is what is always changing suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Hang on, are you saying that consciousness is suffering? Is what suffering, Venerable Sir, is what is inconstant, not incontinent, inconstant, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus. This is mine, this I am, this is a permanent essence. No, Venerable Sir. So your consciousnesses, even your mind conscious, that's not who you are. The anatta doctrine, I flagged this yesterday or this morning. Suppose that this river Ganges was carrying along a great lump of foam. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and empty. For what solidity could one find in a mere lump of foam? So too, whatever kind of form there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it will appear to you to be void, empty, insubstantial. For what solidity could there be in form? Not just a body, in stuff, in wood, in concrete, in earth. It's just foamy. Nothing substantial to be found there. Suppose it were raining and big raindrops are falling. A water bubble arises and bursts on the surface of the water. Plop. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and momentary. For what permanence could there be in a water bubble? So too, whatever kind of experience there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect it and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to you to be void, empty, momentary. For can anything constant be found in experience? Now, we use that, in our meditation, because all experience is momentary. So what actually happens is anything which is stable, the experience just turns off. You need action, it needs to change, it needs to be dynamic. If you don't click the computer on that machine, it turns off. It just disappears, vanishes. So if, for example, you went to a heaven realm and everything was absolutely perfect there, everything you wanted, just the right temperature, every time you thought of dim sum, it just appeared for you. you wouldn't appreciate it. It's just experience. It's void, illusionary. There's nothing in it. That's what happens after a while. All the pleasures of the world, everything you want, you aim for, when you get it, it's very disappointing. Still, okay, another marriage experience. This was actually true. I remember doing a marriage ceremony, and afterwards the bride said, they said that this is the happiest day of your life, getting married. Is this it? I said, yeah, it's all downhill from here, and I'm in big trouble. Because it's expectations. We always think that happiness is going to be happy forever and ever, but it's just momentary. It's the Scottish poet Robert Burns. Pleasures are like poppies spread. You pluck the flower, the bloom is shed. What happens if a ripe poppy, if you pluck it, just the petals fall off. Or like the snowfall in the river, white for a moment and then gone forever. So he had a bit of insight there. And so perception. Suppose that in the last month of the hot season, around noon, a shimmering mirage appears. A person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and illusory. For what reality could there be in a mirage? So with perception, there is light coming into your eye, but we choose to perceive it in all sorts of weird ways. It is just a reflection, and we perceive it as a body of water, a lake on the road. So many of those perceptions are void, hollow, and illusory. There's no reality there. So too, whatever kind of perception there is, past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to be void, empty, illusory. For what reality could there be in perception? Suppose a person needing hardwood would take a chainsaw and enter a forest. There were no chainsaws in the time of the Buddha, so you know that this is some translation which I have made. The simile was you take like an axe, but no person in the right mind these days would go into a forest with an axe. They take a chainsaw. It's actually much more efficient. So it's the same simile, but will relate to the modern people. So that's actually how you do translations. There they would see the trunk of a large banana tree, straight, fresh, without a fruit bud core. And they would cut it down at the root, cut it off at the crown, and unroll the coil. As they unroll the coil, they would not even find softwood, let alone hardwood. And a person with good sight would inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, and without a base. For what basis could there be in the trunk of a banana tree? So too, whatever kind of will there is, whether past, future, or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect it, what this thing will is. You carefully investigate it. As you investigate them, it appears to you to be void, empty, and hollow. For what underlying basis could there be in volition? And I thought of whether to put in Bhante Gunaratana's excellent simile, which is much better than the banana tree, but that was extending it a little bit further than what the Buddha said. And that was his simile for will, for volition, for the sankhara, is the onion. The onion simile. It's a beautiful simile. Because when you peel an onion and you take layer on layer, there's no core to it. So it's just layer after layer of the soft onion tissue. There's nothing in the center, no hardwood in there. But even better than that, as you peel it, it makes you cry. And with an onion, it goes on and on with an eye in the middle. That's a very beautiful little use of English. The will goes on and on, just with an illusion of me in the middle, which makes you cry. So, The next one. Suppose that the magician would perform a trick at a crossroads. Actually, I should take the crossroads away. Would perform a trick on TV. A person with good eyesight would inspect and ponder it and carefully investigate it. It would appear to them to be void, hollow, and deceptive. For what truth could there be in a magical illusion? I know somebody told me that there was a magician who could walk on water. And so they sent me the email clip of this person walking across the Thames on water. And I looked at it. I had good eyes. I inspected, pondered it, and carefully investigated it. And it soon became clear what the fellow was doing, because then he went about a third of the way across. And then a police launch came to arrest him, because it's against the law to walk across the Thames, which is totally ridiculous. The reason they had to stop there was because the little perspex platform, which you couldn't see underwater, that's as far as it could extend. So he had to stop somewhere, and that was the reason for stopping. So it was an illusion. That's what people do. So you look at it, it's a trick. And what truth there could be a magical illusion? So too, whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, one's own or others, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, you inspect and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to you to be void, empty and deceptive. For what authenticity could there be in consciousnesses? It's a magical illusion. It's a trick. So you investigate it. There's nothing substantial there. It appears to be something solid and persistent. But when you actually see how it's done, that's why if you see a magician, they tell you, how it works, how it's done. You think, oh, why didn't I see that? It's just so obvious, but you're not looking in the right place. It's just making you look somewhere else, not where the action is. So those are the 5 similes of the Buddha about the 5 components of existence, the khandhas. The first one, a lump of foam. The second one, just a raindrop, plop. The third one, about a mirage. The fourth one, like an onion, plantain tree, nothing substantial in there, nothing solid. And consciousness, like an illusion, like a magician's trick. So, one who seeks pleasure in a body form seeks only irritation. One who seeks irritation, I say, is not free from suffering. And it's very hard to actually get a decent translation there, but it is an irritation of the body, pleasure. One who seeks gratification experiences seeks only disappointment. One who seeks disappointment, I say, is not free from suffering. One who seeks reality in perceptions seeks only illusions. One who seeks for illusions, I say, is not free from suffering. One who seeks contentment in volition seeks only frustration. I like that one, because when you extend the will, you say, right, no messing about. I'm going to sit perfectly straight. I'm going to sit all night. I'm going to get enlightened. I recall personal anecdotes. The first Wesak I went to as a student in Cambridge University, I was only 18. And I heard the story of the Buddha say, I will sit under this Bodhi tree. I will not move until my blood dries up and my bones turn to dust, or I attain full enlightenment. Meditation, enlightenment or bust. And you know that as an 18-year-old, you're incredibly arrogant. And so I thought, well, just Buddha was a nation, he didn't have the great education I had, if he could do it, why not? So I sat there in my room and I made that arrogant, conceited resolution. Right, this is it. I'm going to become enlightened today. Wesak 1969. No, it's 1970. And I'd only managed 20 minutes. That was my meditation, as long as I could meditate. I managed 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I was in such agony. After 40 minutes, I couldn't stand it any longer. So I opened my eyes, and my blood hadn't dried up yet. My bones were still intact, and even worse, I wasn't enlightened yet. Willpower, it just leads you to frustration. So that's suffering. One who seeks contempt and volition seeks only frustration. One who seeks frustration, I say, is not free from suffering. So don't try and get your own way by just telling all the people in your hut to shut up and do this and do that. Just, if you just cultivate the will, it only leads to frustration and arguments. One who seeks eternity in consciousnesses seeks only for the affliction of more rebirth. So the different types of suffering here. One who seeks for rebirth, I say, is not free from suffering. So sometimes people seek for eternity in consciousness somewhere. So I can be forever and ever and ever. Because stopping, disappearing, for some people is just so fearful. Why this laughter? Why this joy when it's ever burning? Shrouded all about in gloom, won't you look for the light? Look at this attention-demanding body. I like that one, attention-demanding body. It's always, you have to move your glasses, you have to scratch your mouth, nod your cheek, just turn. What I'm seeing with people, we all do that. Just move your fingers on your hand just to raise your eyebrows. Yeah. This body is always, you're just getting peaceful, and then you've got to scratch something. Coughing. Can't you just shut up, body? How many times do I have to scratch you? So that's why this morning I said, let's get all the coughing out of the way, do it once, so you don't have Did it work? Of course not. So this attention-demanding body, a mass of irritations, constantly needing support, prone to illness with nothing stable or lasting. This body gets worn out, so fragile, an incubator for disease. When life ends in death, this disappointing body dissolves. All the exercise, all the health food, all of the yoga, and still I die. Anyway, the 3 warnings. But my friend, didn't you ever see a man or a woman 80 years of age or more? I know it's quite irritating when you say a man or woman 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So that's how they say things in Pali, but just 80 years of age or more. Frail, sickly, struggling to walk even with a walking frame. So walking frame, I added that one in there. Yeah, not a stick. People don't use, a stick. But people don't use a stick these days, they use the walking frame. With many a complaint, strength gone, with false teeth. They say with no teeth, but people don't have no teeth anymore. They have forces or implants, what they're called. With white hair or a wig. With wrinkled skin, blotched limbs, and forgetful. I think they had something else in not forgetful. I added that one in. But what you're talking about there is how you recognize an old person. My friend, didn't it occur to you, an intelligent and mature person, I too am subject to old age. I am not exempt from old age. Let me now do good karma while I still can by body, speech, and mind. But my friend, didn't you ever see a man or a woman sick, moaning, gravely ill, bedridden, incontinent? My friend, didn't it occur to you, an intelligent and mature person, I too am subject to illness. I am not exempt from illness. Let me now do good karma while I still can by body, speech, or mind. But my friend, didn't you ever see among human beings a dead man or woman in a coffin about to be cremated or buried? In the original, it's like sent to a charnel ground, in other words, left out. But you don't do that these days. And you know, for so many people, they don't see dead bodies anymore. So it's wonderful if you go to a funeral service, actually to have a viewing and touch the dead body. But even that is not so good, because before you actually see the body in the box, they do the embalmment. Yeah, makeup, yeah. Because the only reason they look so healthy, and it's because they put all this chemicals in it, which would kill you if you were alive. And they would actually just make sure they put a smile on your face before you have rigor mortis. So once you get it in there and it sticks, oh, they look so peaceful. And it's happened. I've done so many funerals, sometimes they say, is that my husband? Because he never smiled in his life. Sourpuss. But anyway, that's what they have to do. So, but if you actually see a real dead body, that's really fascinating. It's all grey and just pallid, the life's out of it. It stinks sometimes. But if it didn't occur to you, an intelligent, mature person, I too am subject to death. I am not exempt from death, and let me now do good karma while I still can by body, speech and mind. Samsara. This samsara is without a beginning. Our first point is not found of beings roaming and wandering on, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting. Blinded by delusion, you can't see what's really going on, and you're addicted to wanting. Look at this retreat. What do you need? You've got everything. You've got a nice place to go to sleep anytime you want, nice food, beautiful, no pressure on you, nothing to achieve. I say just relax, don't strive. But can you do that? Wanting is an addiction. I want something. It gives you a purpose in life, something to do, something to strive for, something to just to push the muscles of the wanting mind against, like lifting, like a weight. Wanting. We're addicted to that. But the samsara is without a beginning. Love that one, as a physicist. Because what good old Professor Hawking says, no boundaries. So the Big Bang was not the beginning of the universe. There's something before the Big Bang. And that's when he found Hawking radiation for a black hole. He said there's no beginning. It goes on and on and on with an I in the middle. That's samsara. So when people say, well, look, how did this universe begin? Say, it hasn't got a beginning. But that makes no sense. Actually, having a beginning makes sense. So what was before the beginning? That never made sense to me. And the answer is, if you have any of your creationists friends, the answer was that the flat earth simile. 400 years ago, maybe more, people believed that this earth was flat. And if you sailed in a boat far enough, you would fall off the edge. People actually believed in that. To them, it was obvious. And, they just could not conceive it. They couldn't actually perceive, didn't have the ability to view this planet Earth as a ball, as a sphere. But now everybody knows that this planet Earth is spherical. It doesn't have an end or a beginning. You go round and round and round and round, you never fall off. It is just a limited area without any beginning or end. You get the idea, like wheels and spheres without beginnings and ends. But what about space? The final frontier. That was Star Trek. To boldly go where no monk has gone before. That's boldly go, they said. I say boldly go. Please, you can say boldly go where no nun has gone before. So what about space? And still remember over in the physics in the Cavendish, the lecture where the lecturer got out a big football and said, the ant crawling on this football goes round and round and round and round and round, doesn't find a beginning or an end. Now extend that by one dimension and you got space. Curved space. You go far enough and you come back from where you started. There is no boundary to the universe. You don't come to a place and there's a barbed wire, razor wire fence Like I see in Singapore, prohibited area with this little poor guy being shot. You can't go there, that's the end. So, you don't have that at the end of the universe. If there was a brick wall, what's on the other side of the brick wall? There's a fence, there's always another side of the fence. So the answer is there is no ending to this universe, but it's a finite volume. There's only a certain amount of space, a certain amount of universes. It's not infinite, but without boundaries. Once you get your head around that, no boundaries, but limited in space. There is a very, very beautiful, very simple little argument. I forget who named it, but they said if it was infinite, there'd be just so much light coming from everywhere that actually it would just be too hot for life. It would just evaporate. There's a logical argument, and no one's ever been able to actually argue against that. It cannot be infinite. Just the nature of energy, as it dissipates, the further it goes away, it dissipates to the inverse square of the distance. And if it is infinite, they have to have an average density of stars. And so you just work, it's such a simple calculation, and it means this is too much energy. The universe can't stand it just bursts. It has to be limited, but without any ending. That's actually, without any edges, that's Einstein's general theory of relativity. That's what that proved. You ask any scientist, any physicist, this universe has no boundary, but it's only a certain amount of volume. That is the truth. So now you go to the next level. So people think that's like flat, bounded time, like flat Earth. If you go far enough, you fall off the edge. If you go to the universe, go far enough, you fall off the edge. You can't do that. Now the last one is time. Flat timers. We believe in flat time. You go far enough backwards in time, and you fall off the edge. You go past the beginning of time. There's a boundary, there's a wall, you can't go further. You go far enough in the other direction and you come to the end of time. Armageddon, the ending of all time. Both of those don't make any sense. What happens after the end of time? What was there before the beginning? Nothing makes any sense until you realize that even time is curved. Samsara, like a wheel. So, the latest is imagine a rubber band, always expanding, stretching, without breaking. No beginning, no end. But you can't go fast enough to come back to where you began. Go round and round and round. Not flat time, but round time. Samsara, wheels, chakras. Look at the universe, everything is round. The galaxies, the suns, the solar system, always going round. Even Ajahn Brahm, your teacher, he's also round. No ending of his silly jokes.
If time is round, you go far enough, you come back to the past.
That's the point, you can't. It's expanding too fast. This universe is expanding. In theory, you could actually go any direction and come back into Jhana Grove. But in theory, because it's expanding faster than you can go, you'll never reach it. This samsara is without a beginning and also without an end. The first point is not found of beings roaming and wandering on, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting. So anyone who says there's a beginning of time, they are flat timers, like flat earthers. What do you think which is more? When you understand this goes round and round, What do you think is more? The stream of tears that you have wept as you roamed and wandered on through your many lives, weeping and wailing because of enjoying the disagreeable and not getting what you want, this or the water in all the great oceans. For a long time you've experienced grief through the death of a loved one, or a dear friend, or the loss of reputation, or wealth, as you've experienced this weeping and wailing because of enduring despair and not getting what you want. The stream of tears that you have wept is more than the water in all the oceans, which is why the oceans are salty. I did that. For a long time you've been arrested as murderers, burglars and adulterers. All of you have, including me, and you nuns. Oh, I've got that. Which do you think is more, the streams of blood that you have shed when you were beheaded as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, this or the water in all the great oceans? That's a lot of beheadings. For a long time you've been arrested as murderers, burglars and adulterers, and when you were beheaded, the stream of blood you shed is greater than the water in all the ocean. For what reason? Because this samsara is without a beginning. A first point is not discerned of beings who, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting, are journeying through this round of rebirth and death. The round of rebirth and death. The cycle. So not linear lines with beginnings and ends, but circles and spheres. And you go into the next dimensions of space and time. Even just one person wandering on through their many lives, blinded by delusion and addicted to wanting, would leave behind a stack of bones, a heap of bones, a mass of bones as large as Mount Everest. In the sutta it says like Mount Sineru, but no one knows where that is, but you know Mount Everest. If there was someone to collect them all, and what was collected would not perish. For what reason? Because this samsara is without a beginning. Have you ever seen the limestone cliffs and the limestone caves? And that limestone is just the dead bodies of these mollusks which lived in the ocean. And just when you appreciate that, billions, uncountable, the bones of these sea creatures died and deposited in that limestone. Ooh, that's a long time. For such a long time you've experienced suffering, agony and disaster and swelled the cemeteries with your bones from your many lives. It is enough to experience revulsion towards all volitional formations, will, which got you going into this life again. Enough to let go of it, enough to let go of the cause of more birth, enough to be liberated from samsara. When you realize what you got yourself into. Okay, that is the truth of suffering. Okay, so you're in big trouble. You're in the poo, like I said yesterday, and the Buddha was trying to take you out, but no, I like my poo. The first noble truth is trying to actually to show you that this is a big problem. The noble truths of the origin of suffering. The I should actually mention, this is a wonderful little story. I got it wrong the other day. It wasn't Jnana Tilak, it was Jnana Wimala, the German monk, really impressive monk. I was very fortunate when I first time I went to Sri Lanka and just met this monk. And Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, he was staying at the, not Narada Centre, what's it called? Wajirarama. No, Wajirarama, it's in Colombo. And he said, oh, would you like to meet Venerable Jnana Wimala? I said, oh, yeah. So I said, just go in and pay respect to him. So I went in there to pay respect to him. And remember Ron Battersby? He was with me at the time. And went in there to pay respect to him. And then he gave us a Dhamma talk. And honestly, best Dhamma talk I've ever heard in my life. Brilliant. And better than Ajahn Chah, better than anybody I've ever heard. I just had like stars in my eyes when I came out afterwards. And poor old Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, he said, where have you been? And I said, for the last hour and a half or something. He said, oh, I just listened to a Dharma talk. What? He never gives Dharma talk. You just come in from Australia, he gives you a Dhamma talk. I live here and he's never given me a Dhamma talk. That was really, really cool, that Dhamma talk. So anyway, but his story was that he was the one who was at a beer garden. I think it was just after the war, before the war, I think. I'm not sure. It's been there a long time. Anyway, in a beer garden with his friends, young, fit, and the beer gardens were these old little cottages where they brewed the beer and they served it out in the garden. So people went to the cottage to pay for the beer and they go out with their mates and friends and girlfriends and just have a good time. But then the owners of the beer garden, the little house, the cottage, they sort of ran outside. There was a fire in the rooms upstairs where they would sleep. They ran outside, there's a fire. And many of Jnana Vimala's young friends, boys and girls, in the prime of their life, they ran into the house to get free beer. And as they were in there thinking how fortunate they were to get free beer, the ceiling collapsed on them. And they were all killed, really badly injured. And that was the people he grew up with. School friends, people in the next house. Young girls, beautiful girls, prime of life, killed. And he had to take them out, try to heal them, hear their screams of pain. And that was such a moving experience for him. Now it says, this world is burning. And that was actually when he saw that in the suttas, that really hit him hard. So he decided what's the point of just seeking pleasures when these things happen? That made him become a monk, and a really good monk too. So that's when he's experiencing real suffering, and just because of desire, wanting. Anyway, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the threefold wanting. Now you see here, I've changed craving to wanting, because craving is only an intense form of wanting. So without just ordinary wanting is okay, just don't crave for it. But all wanting is meaning here by tanha, craving. The literal meaning is thirst. So I'm thirsty for a drink of my tea. That was wanting. I only did that just to demonstrate it, not because, I was addicted to it. So, the threefold wanting. Now this is the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the cause of suffering. Why? It is this wanting which leads to rebirth, accompanied by enjoyment and desire, seeking delight now here, now there. That is wanting related to the five senses, wanting to be and wanting not to be, the annihilation wanting. Now, wanting the five senses, it doesn't say anything about the wanting of the sixth sense. And the reason is because that wanting leads you out of samsara. The joy of the mind, the jhanas, the arupas. But even more than that, wanting to be. How many times have I seen people in great pain in the hospitals and they just can't let go and die because their wanting to be, to exist, is far stronger than their wanting to have freedom from their pain. They'd rather be with the pain and be than have their pain disappear and their idea of being go. So wanting to exist, to be. And if you're afraid, any time I talk about non-self, that there's nobody there, that you're not in charge of the will, and that which you thought to be consciousness is, or consciousness or mind, is just transitory. It comes and goes and eventually will disappear. If you have fear, then so did the Buddha. As before he became enlightened. You notice that. That is the most terrifying thing to let go of. Existence. But some people want not to be. I don't want to be reborn. And the Buddha called that like a dog chasing its tail. Or like in Oliver Twist, where a man tried to eat his own head. I like chasing his own tail, you can see that. The dog never catches its tail. But like eating your own head. You think, how can I do that? But you can't do that because you need a mouth to eat, and if you eat your mouth, you can't do it. Or the other thing is about licking your elbow. It cannot be done. Now you're going to try, aren't you? There we go. Try it. Now you think, well, there must be some way I can do this. But it can't be done without breaking your arm. Oh, no, I'll remember that joke later on this evening. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's like you don't want to be reborn again. But because you want something, that's the cause of rebirth. So wanting not to be, is actually creates more being. So the origin of wanting. And where does this wanting arise and become established? Wherever in the world there is anything agreeable and pleasurable, there this wanting arises and becomes established in this world. Sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, mind objects in the world are agreeable and pleasurable. Some are, some aren't obviously, but most are in this world. And there this wanting arises and becomes established. You have a nice meditation, you want it again. The six consciousnesses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch and mind, are agreeable and pleasurable. And there this wanting arises and becomes established in the consciousness. In experience of the six senses is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. The perceptions of sight, sound, smells, taste, touches and mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Just in experience and sights. Have you been to see the Grand Canyon yet? Is that on your bucket list? The Great Wall of China? Niagara Falls? So, you know actually that when I had a chance to go see Niagara Falls in 1969, they turned the water off. They're doing repairs. Honestly, you check it out. So anyway, if you want to see Niagara Falls, you don't need to do that. Go Serpentine Falls. Yeah, it's the same thing, only just not as big. If you want to see the Great Wall of China, just go see the Great Wall of Bodhinyana. It's a wall. What's the difference? Anyway, so perceptions. Why do we have to do these things for? Will in regard to sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, and mind objects is agreeable. Now this is getting interesting. You like to will. Will in its sense is a form what we take to be pleasurable. We like to will. Striving, going for your goal. There's a pleasure in that, but there's also a pain in it as well. There this wanting arises and becomes established. The wanting of sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. Thinking of sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable. You wouldn't think if there was nothing in it for you. There's a pleasure in it and a joy in it. But there's also a problem with it, as we will see probably tomorrow. Fantasizing about sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, and mind objects is agreeable and pleasurable, and there this wanting arises and becomes established. And the difference between fantasy and real life is in fantasy, you're always a winner. You always manage to get what you want. That is the problem with the law of attraction. It's just a fantasy. Have you got how much was it, £10 million check yet? You checked with the trustees over in Toulon? See, it's a fantasy. But it's pleasurable to actually think about it. But it's actually you have to pay for that afterwards. You get disappointment when it's not there. Or someone has stolen it and taken it away. That is called the noble truth of the origin of suffering. That's where it comes from. Dependent origination of all phenomena On seeing a sight, the same with the other six senses, you want it if it is pleasing, you try to get rid of it if it is unpleasing. The wanting to have it, keep it, the wanting to get rid of it. You abide with mindfulness and wisdom of the five senses, the body, unestablished, with a limited mind, and you do not understand as it actually is the liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom, wherein those deceiving and oppressive states cease without remainder. Engaged as you are in favouring and opposing, whatever experience you have, whether pleasant, painful or neutral, you delight in that experience. Welcome it and remain holding on to it. As you do so, delight arises in you. Now delight in experience is a fuel. It fuels you. With fuel as a condition, states of existence develop, states of existence as condition, rebirth, with rebirth as a condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, negativity and distress come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Delighting in it is a fuel which keeps you going. Yeah, you may not get it right this lifetime, but you think, next time I'll do it better. Now I know how to be rich, how to be successful. Now I learned, next time, give me another go, then I'll get it right. And what happens? You get it wrong again. Karma. Present karma result. Now, I said Sanditaka here because you know that when we actually do any chanting and the qualities of the Dhamma, it's Suwakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Panaiko Pachatang Weditabo Winyuhi. And this is Sanditaka, and this is actually what it means. It doesn't mean like here and now, it literally means in this life, as we'll now find out. With the five senses as the cause, the source and the basis, the culprit being simply the five senses, presidents quarrel with prime ministers, politicians with each other, priests with imams, businessmen with householders, monks with nuns, parents quarrel with each other. Now you read it, it's not quite the same as you read in the sutta, but this gets the gist of what the Buddha's saying. And makes it a bit more fun. Parents quarrel with each other and with their children, sibling with sibling and friend with friend. And here in their quarrels, brawls and disputes, they attack each other with abuse, weapons or lawsuits. They don't say lawsuits there, but that's what people do these days. Whereby they incur death, injury or loss. Now this too is a danger in the case of the five senses, a massive suffering in this very life. The cause being simply the five senses. It's not like sense desire, because when you have five senses, the desire comes from them. Again, with the five senses as a cause, people steal, commit fraud, sleep with other people's partners, commit domestic violence, sexual abuse with children. And when they are caught, they are imprisoned and ruined. Now this too is a danger in the case of the five senses, a massive suffering in this very life, the cause being simply the five senses. Future karma results. Again, with the five, this is the opposite of Sandittika, Samparayaka. With the five senses as the cause, the source and the basis, the culprit being simply the five senses, people indulge in misconduct of body, speech and mind. Having done so, after death they will appear in states of misery, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, even in hell. Now this is a danger in the case of the five senses, a massive suffering in the life to come, having the five senses as its cause, its source and its basis, the cause being simply the five senses. In particular, one is called Samparayaka, the other one is called Sandittika. So the reason why the Buddha said this Dhamma is Sandittika, because you can understand it, verify it pertains to this life. You don't have to just have faith and hopefully in the next life or when you die then you got the right religion or the right type of religion or the right teacher. Sometimes after you die, oh my goodness, Ajahn Brahm wasn't right, I should have been a Christian. No, you can find out in this very life. You don't have to wait till after life. You will not find a spot in the world, not in the sky, not in the ocean, not inside a panda cave. Did you go see the panda today? Yes. Yeah, panda cave. Did the panda behave? Yes. Did you see how flat it was? Yes. Well, it used to be round, honestly. Where you will be free from the results of karma. Karma's volition. We got time? Oh yeah. Volition is karma, I say. For having willed, you act by body, speech or mind. So when you will something, when you have volition, that is karma. So if you step on one of those poor little was it Portuguese millipedes at night time, it's not karma because you never willed it. But if you decide to stamp on them on purpose, that is karma. Whether it's good karma or bad karma comes from your motivation, where it's coming from. The volition here, the will, is where you want it to go to. What is the diversity of karma? There's karma to be experienced in the hell realm, or in the animal realm, or in the ghost realm, or in the human realm, and there is karma to be experienced in the Deva world. So yeah, there are hell realms, and you make them. What you think is going to be torture for you. So having one retreat in Penang over Christmas time, the room opposite me was having a party, and they were doing karaoke, and I experienced what we call the karaoke hell. The longer it goes, the more people think they can sing, but the more out of tune they get. And that was just so much suffering. So if I ever have to go to a hell, then it will just be the karaoke hell. That's the worst. But you don't need to, if you understand what's going on. The ghost realm, yes, there are ghosts, afflicted spirits. I told that story last night, didn't I, about ghosts? Yeah. Or in the human world, and there's karma to experience in the Deva world. And what is the result of karma? I say it's threefold, to be experienced in this very life, or in the next life, or in some subsequent life. I shouldn't say and or, I think I should put in there, because sometimes one karma, you get multiple results. And that was actually quite fascinating to understand that. That's exactly said in the Buddha. By the Buddha, if you do an act of good karma, such as you give an apple, a mango to a Buddha, you get that result many, many times back. It's not just one-on-one, it's thousands of times back, uncountable times back. And if you do something really nasty, that comes back to you thousands of times as well. So it's not just one-one. So of all the acts you've done, good karma, bad karma, you've got an inexhaustible supply of bad karma. You have to have. And you've got an inexhaustible supply of good karma. So why does bad karma come up sometimes and not good karma? Now that the law of attraction actually is pointing to. If you have a positive mind, so you think, just something will turn up. Mr. Micawber from Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. What was Great Expectations? Or Nicholas Nickleby. Yeah, that was it. And when you have a positive attitude, you find you draw positive things to you. A negative attitude, something's going to go wrong, it's not going to work, it's terrible things are going to happen to me, then you actually draw negative things to you. That, not specific but general law of attraction, yes, that happens. Because what it is, your positive attitude is the PIN number to access a good karma account, which is inexhaustible. The negative is the PIN number which gets the bad karma coming up. So, beings are the owners of their karma, heirs of their karma. They have karma as their origin, karma as their property, karma as their resort. Whatever karma they do, good or bad, they are its heirs. Remember that story of the man with the 4 wives in the first book? Man with the 4 wives. At the end of his life, his latest wife, his 4th wife, the really pretty, beautiful young one, said, "Darling, do you love me?" "Yeah, I love you." And said, "Will you always love me?" "Yeah, I'll always love you." And he said, "But now I'm going to die soon. Will you come with me into death?" "No way." He said, "I will speak great words at your funeral. I will speak your praise, but I'll do nothing more." So, asked for the 3rd wife. And her 3rd wife came in just dripping with jewellery and bling. and said, you said you love me. Yeah, I always love you. And said, I'm about to die. Will you come with me into death? He said, no, of course not. I'll make sure you have a really good funeral, but after you die, I'm going to go with your son. What? I'm not even dead yet, and you're already being adulterous? Get out of here, you shameless hussy. They used to say that in the old days. I don't know what hussy means, but anyway. There, for the second one. The second one was really old, but was this very wise and always there for you. And the second wife was asked, will you go with me? He said, no, if I could, I would, but I can't, so I won't. But I'll go as far as your graveside. I can go no more. I wish I could, but I can't. And so, get out of here. And his first wife, the one he'd married such a long time ago, he couldn't even remember life without her, and said, will you go with me into death? He said, of course. I'll go with you everywhere, from life to life. That's why my name is Mrs. Karma. The second wife was Mrs. Family. Always there for you, supporting you. Go as far as your graveside, but can go no further. And the third wife is Mrs. Wealth, with all the bling. She can get you a nice funeral, but after you die, your son inherits you. That's why you go with the son, or a daughter, or whatever. Or the government, more likely, the lawyer. And the last one is Mrs. Fame. Mrs. Fame, you get later on in life and speak nice words at your funeral, but you can't take them with you. So, but you always take karma with you, wherever you go. So that's why your karma is your heir. Wherever the karma ripens, it's there you experience this result, either in this very life, the next life, or some subsequent life. There comes a time when the great oceans dry up and evaporate, climate change, and no longer exist. But still I say there is no making an end of suffering for those beings roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. There comes a time when the Himalaya, the king of mountain, burns up and perishes and no longer exists. But still I say there is no making an end of suffering for those beings roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. These used to be very big mountains where we're sitting on now. Australia is one of the oldest continents, been worn down. Such a long time. There comes a time when even the planet Earth burns up, turns into cosmic dust, spreading throughout the universe. So I did my little bit of astrophysics there. Well, that's absolutely true. When I first heard that, I thought, wow, that's so cool. Jhana Grove, that place over in Norway, that with all of the depository of all the seeds to regenerate Earth, everything will just go into cosmic dust. All of the memorials to human existence will just blow away and be dust in this universe. That's our destiny. Nothing is permanent. There'll be no record of our existence. I think it's really cool. And even more cool, we're made up of some very, very heavy elements, and the only way they can be made, in this universe is through 2 supernovae. So if you ask the little atoms in your body, or is it 2 or 3? But anyway, just say 2 for now, that's enough. If you ask the atom in your body, its history, if it could tell you where it's been over the last 11,000 billion years, it would actually say twice, I was in this star, which had this massive explosion, huge supernova. And that's what created me. So you are literally, this is not just hippie speak. Yeah, I was at that age. I went to the Isle of Wight festival, and I was actually in the United States when Woodstock, but I was somewhere else. You are stardust. That is a physical, scientific fact. That's cool. Stardust. Anyway, it makes no difference. Still suffering. So there comes a time planet Earth burns up and turns into cosmic dust, and if I don't finish speaking soon, that might happen before I finish today's Sutta class. Spreading throughout the universe no longer exists, but still I say there's no making an end of suffering for those being roaming through rebirth and death, blinded by delusion, addicted to wanting. Yay! What a great place to finish off. So, that is the bad news. Suffering and the cause of suffering. Tomorrow, the good news. The cessation of suffering. So tomorrow is Good News Day. Okay, so let's finish off. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.